Hi, it's Colin Coward. I started The Volume to bring you some of the most authentic voices in sports. While you're here, make sure you hit subscribe. Thanks.
Okay, I wanted to start with the retirement talk. I mean, that kind of took off, and rightfully so. Once the headlines start going around, and we call it clickbait, it's hard to even tell exactly what clickbait it is anymore, but clearly media can take a quote from a guy and really stretch it and use it to draw up some activity and some interest. And if you read what McVay said, he talked about retiring when he was 60. He didn't know if he saw himself coaching till 60. Well, he's not 55. He's 36 years old. Now, have there been some rumors out there? Of course television would want him. Of course. He talks like John Gruden. He feels like a young millennial version of John Gruden. Clearly a better guy. And just someone that everyone, like he would be a magnetic television personality. The other thing is, ESPN has been desperately trying to get a star in the booth for years, since John Gruden went back to the Raiders. They've had Madden, they've had Gruden, they want a Peyton Manning, they want a Sean McVay. Like, even Sean Payton is probably not as big of a star power, even though they both have one Super Bowl, as Sean McVay. And part of it is just Sean McVay's young. We'll get into Sean Payton a little bit later. But the retirement, I've been following his beautiful fiance on Instagram. I mean, I think we all probably follow a lot of people we don't know on Instagram of the opposite sex, and she's one. Also, I kind of keep track of McVay's life. Not really. There's not that much McVay content on there. But and here's what I loved about the Rams parade is the amount of alcohol that was being consumed by Sean McVay. There were pictures on a bus at 8 a.m. with Sean McVay double fisting, and she posted a picture that he is not retiring, kind of tongue-in-cheek, messing with everyone, but also kind of being serious. He's not retiring, of a picture of him with a glass of wine. And in the Instagram story, he was watching what looked like the Inside the NFL show, the mic'd up version of the game, of the Super Bowl. And I started thinking, like, I'd probably be doing the same thing, wasted, watching the game back. He was excited. I mean, he had a big smile on his face, absolutely plastered. My over-under on his drinks that day, glasses of wine, tequila shots, beers, probably in the low 20s. And I give him a lot of, he's not that big of a guy. And during the season, it's not like he drinks that much. His tolerance is pretty high. Sean McVay gets after it. But I think from a football perspective, and I've compared him before to John Madden, because once John Madden won that Super Bowl, it changed his life. But let's face it, the real reason John Madden became such a big deal, he didn't get into the Hall of Fame till the 2000s. Like, he had this great coaching record. He was known as the guy calling games. And let's face it, he revolutionized that position. He's the best that has ever done it any sport. And then the video game, like, he became a larger-than-life person outside of the football world. But on the football field, like, he had a bunch of great teams with the Raiders and only won one Super Bowl. And I think, if you talk to him in his younger days, he probably would tell you we easily could have won 2 or 3. And part of winning 2 or 3 Super Bowls is it separates you from the pack. Right? It's why Andy Reid, the last couple of years, you're like, can he get that second one? He's in my mind, Andy Reid was going to win one, and he eventually got one. But in my opinion, he's a 2 or 3 Super Bowl level coach, and I think he's going to get another one. Just like, Bill Parcells, if Bill Parcells had won 1 Super Bowl, I don't think we talk about Bill Parcells the way we talk about Bill Parcells. He won multiple Super Bowls. It changes the narrative on you as a coach. And Sean McVay got the hardest part out of the way. He's a champion at 36 years old. And the retirement talk to me was silly, and we had talked about it earlier in the week. He just needs a raise. Give him $18 to $20 million, 5-year deal. Let's move on. Same with Aaron Donald. Aaron Donald wants a raise. Aaron Donald's not going to retire either. But I looked at his contract, Aaron Donald's contract, if he had been shitty instead of becoming the greatest player we've ever seen as defensive line, or one of them, I mean, Reggie White, they're Mean Joe Green, there are other players, they would have been able to get out of it and cut him this year. So I think part of why he's doing this, he wants a brand new contract. He's well worth it too. 5 years, $100 million, guarantee every penny or something, whatever it takes, right? You got to extend all these guys. Matt Stafford, they are built to keep winning. To me, can Sean McVay get into the crew of multiple Super Bowls as a head coach? It's a short list, right? But when you win multiple Super Bowls, it changes the landscape of how we think about you. A lot of guys have won 1 Super Bowl. Gary Kubiak won a Super Bowl. Brian Billick won a Super Bowl, right? Are you just going to be the guy that just wins 1, or are you going to be the guy that wins multiple? And he has a great position. Like, ultimately, I think Andy's going to get another one. But time, he's not 50 years old. He's in his early 60s. So he's got the next 4 or 5 years to really take advantage. And he's had the last couple post the first Super Bowl. He knows it, right? Eventually you run out of time. Like Belichick, probably never going to win another one. But you know what doesn't matter? He's got 6. And I think Sean McVay now, in these next 2 or 3 years, can he win another Super Bowl? Because watching the Montana documentary, the thing that separated Parcells wasn't when he won the thing in whatever it was, 1986. It was when he won the second one in 1990. That's when he became a fucking legend. If Sean McVay, who, if Rodgers were to leave, and we'll get into Rodgers a little bit later, Trey Lance and Kyle need to figure some stuff out. The Saints don't have a quarterback. The Bucs don't have a quarterback. The Eagles got quarterback, question marks. The Cowboys, no one trusts McCarthy or their team. Like, he has an opportunity to go back-to-back. Then if you go back-to-back, if he wants to retire, do whatever you want to do. But I really believe these next 3 or 4 years, in the peak of his earning potential, his youth, his energy, he's got a chance to become a legend. And we're going to find out. Is he like a better version of Gary Kubiak, or is he the offensive version of Bill Parcells? Mike Shanahan won a couple, right? He already got the hardest part out of the way. Another story I saw going around is there was like an article written about how the Rams built their team. And there was part of it about Cooper Kupp. And Cooper Kupp was a 3rd-round pick who went to the Senior Bowl, and then he went to the Combine and ran in the 4.6s. And these comments to this Athletic article was like, teams need to figure out how to scout better. How could teams have overlooked Cooper Kupp? Let's pump the brakes. Cooper Kupp, who I think is on a trajectory to be a Hall of Fame player, but when he was drafted, he went in the right spot. The draft is an economic exercise. If I told you that you could get a house, you could own a house in 5 years that's worth $10 million, would you rather pay $4 million for that home, or would you rather pay $1 million for that home? Of course, you'd say, well, I'd rather pay $1 million for the home that's going to be worth 10 than for the one that's going to be worth 10, because I'd rather make 9 than make 6. Of course you would. If you love Cooper Kupp, for example, the Rams did in this article, when he ran, I think it was like 4.64, maybe it was 4.62, whatever it was. One of the scouts for the Rams looks at Les Snead and goes, that sucks. And Les Snead looks at him, and part of draft stories, they become mythological, I wouldn't say bullshit, but, they stretch the truth a little bit to make it sound good. And Les Snead looks back at his right-hand man, one of his main scouts, and goes, I love it. Like, he was glad that he ran a poor time. Now, ultimately, Cooper Kupp came from Eastern Washington, a smaller school, and didn't run that fast. Now, as we know, just because you come from a smaller school and don't run that fast on the 40 does not determine whether you're going to succeed or fail. Google Jerry Rice, Mississippi Valley State. But it does determine your draft value. When you run slow at the Combine, you are not going to go high in the draft at wide receiver or corner. That's just a fact, because the draft is a market value exercise. And also, when I was, for example, not I, but like when Russell Wilson was coming out, John Schneider, his favorite player in that draft, is well documented, was Russell Wilson. He pounded the table to Pete Carroll like, I don't care how small this guy is. He is going to be a starting quarterback and a great player in this league. And I bet even he didn't realize he was going to be as good as he became. But they drafted Bruce Irvin in the 1st round. And if memory serves me correct, they drafted Bobby Wagner in the 2nd. And they drafted Russell Wilson in the 3rd. Now, you'd go, well, if they could do it all over again, they would have taken Russell Wilson in the 1st round. No, they wouldn't. They would have taken other guys knowing that his value was going to be in the 3rd round. You would always rather pay less for an asset that you really want, regardless of, part of it is being patient. And listen, there's an unknown aspect of this, but the league didn't miss on Cooper Kupp. He went where he was supposed to go. You see it every single year, right? Like, he is going, guys like that, smaller school guys, a lot of production, who don't run that fast, fall in the draft. Devontae Adams. I followed his career. I had left Fresno State and went to the Eagles, and that's when he came and started. And I loved him. Everyone loved him. I don't know any human being that didn't love Devontae Adams in college. But when he went to the Combine and did not run in the 4.4s, he was not going to go in the 1st round. That's the market value. That's the way the draft works. Now, there are certain positions that Basically, if you have some basic traits, you're an untouchable. Like, it's harder for you to fall. Quarterback, pass rusher, and offensive lineman, mainly tackles. But all these other positions, wide receivers, corners, there have been a lot of corners that fell in the draft and then became good players because they didn't run that fast. It doesn't mean you would never draft a guy in the first round if you know you can get him in the fourth round, if you are good at your job. And you could love the player. Mike Mayock lost his job, and a huge reason was he kept missing on first-round players, him and Gruden. Like, you would never take Cleveland Farrell at 4. You could have got him at 25. You would never take Alex Leatherwood at 17. Could have got him at 38. Like, part of the draft is knowing where you can get players. And you don't know if another team is going to take a player. But that, to me, is a part we never talk about with these general managers. The general managers that don't get the valuation of players in a draft, to me, are the worst. I call them dum-dums. I call them just meatheads. Like, it's why I worked around Howie Roseman. No one has a better idea of value. Doesn't mean he's always right, but he knows where guys are going to go. Because you never want to pull the trigger on a guy in the third round when you could have got him in the sixth. And vice versa. If you want to get this guy in the fourth, but you got to take him in the second, well, if you want him, you got to take him in the second. That's a huge, it's an economic exercise. It's what as I've gotten older, really grown to love about the draft, is valuing players, knowing, their attributes when they test, where that kind of puts you in the spectrum, and knowing, give or take 10, 15 spots where you got to pull the trigger to get the player. Because where you are drafted does not determine whether you're going to go to the Hall of Fame, be a Pro Bowler, or be a bust. Pick 199, greatest player of all time. Richard Sherman, 5th-round corner, Hall of Famer. Hell, J.J. Watt and Aaron Donald didn't even go in the top 10. So it's just the draft. I think the guys need to learn how to scout. No, Cooper Kupp went where he was supposed to go, and then he became an awesome player.